Are we talking to each other?
We're talking to each other.
We're talking to each other.
Like me.
Okay.
It's really informal. This is just me.
Oh, this is totally natural.
This is totally natural.
Oh, we just hang out in a white room.
A white studio.
Yeah, white studio.
A couple chairs, some nice
matching mug. Yeah, we just hang out.
Okay, so Joe, I just wanted to do this to kind of give an opportunity to share a little bit more of your story, to talk through things that people didn't see in the film, the journey, and because they didn't see a lot of it. They didn't see a lot of buildup. It was mostly just these like one-liners that were able to give a perspective of your experience with triathlon and your build-up over 8 years, right? It took you to do from beginning to end. So I just kind of want to give more opportunity to dig in on some of these like key things that people have been commenting about. But first, let's start with how I met you. So I met you Pasadena Triathlon Club like 4 years ago?
I'm just rolling around the Rose Bowl. I'm like, hey, who's that guy?
So my friend Gene Wong, do you remember Gene?
I know Gene.
Yeah, so Gene was like, hey, come, I'm part of this triathlon club. And at the time I had gone through this like life transformation process. And I was like, I want to try something else. I'm going to try triathlon. And so I just like got a bike, never rode bike in my life, and jumped into triathlon. And you were one of the first people that I met. It was you and Linda were kind of one of the first people that I met, and I was just like drawn to your kindness and friendliness and just like willingness to bring this complete newbie into the triathlon world. And I felt like you just had so much experience to what you were doing. And so that was our first interaction. And then about a year later, or was it?
Well, we always play good cop, bad cop. See, I try to be friendly.
You and Linda?
Yeah, and Linda gets her hooks into you. I actually remember, I'm not sure if it was the first time we met, but it was at a brick on the Wednesday night, and it was super hot, and we're just all, we haven't even started working out yet. I'm just drenched. I'm like, hey, who's that guy? Well, we always like, first we look at the bike, and then we look at the guy, then we look at the bike again. It's like, new.
Very new. I had my visor on the front of my helmet, and apparently that's like a super not roadie thing to do. And so Linda rolls up to me, and she's like, who are you? It's like, oh, I'm Zack. She's like, yeah, you gotta take that visor off. I was like, oh, okay. And then I would always show up in my like tri-top, because I have two jerseys, one bike jersey and a tri jersey. That's it. And so I'd either wear the tri jersey or the bike jersey. And anyways, so we had met, and then I go on to complete my first full Ironman distance race. Now, it was like a 3-year journey for me. From every year, stepping it up, started with an Olympic, went to a half Ironman, and then did a full Ironman. I did Ironman Coeur d'Alene in 2015.
Yeah, that was a roaster. I remember tracking you going, they are melting
107
today,
degrees that day. And so I get back from that experience, and I had just jumped into starting my own production company and doing some films, and I approached you and I said, Joe, we need to make a film about this. And you're like, yeah, great, let's do it. And then I go, no, let's make a film about you.
Then I was like,
what did you think when the first time I said, let's make a film about you?
Well, I was very interested in the project of telling stories about triathletes, because, being in the triathlon club, I always meet people and hear their stories. And the great part about it is that we usually see the after. The guy's super fit, he's on his bike, and then we get to hear a story, and sometimes they share their fat pictures. It's awesome. And I interviewed some of my friends in the Tri Club and got their stories, and they're super inspiring. And I think that when we talked about the project, I knew that it would be an inspiring project, just because everyone we knew had a great story. So when you approached me and said, well, let's do your story, and I was like, I don't know, it's gonna be, because I'm not fast, it's not gonna be pretty, but it will be an everyman story. It'll be like, you don't have to be special, you don't have to be coming from a track star background. So I was like, well, that's the story, that's my story, and it'll get people there.
Yeah, and that's what drew me to you, to be honest. It was like, I think, though you've gotten really fast over the years, when we first started riding together, I was like, Joe just goes. He does Joe. And when I first got into triathlon, I was bringing this like egotistical ball sport like guy who played football and baseball and all this kind of stuff. I was like, okay, I'm gonna do triathlon. And I realized so quickly that it's such a humbling sport. You know, it's like if you go full tilt right out of the gate, you're gonna blow up. You know, and you're not gonna be able to succeed to like your full potential, right? And so
it's interesting where people come from and how they approach the sport.
Yeah.
So if people come to them and they're middle-aged and they had a background in swimming or in running, then they come to that sport and they're like, I need to learn something else. I need to fill in those gaps. And so in that part, it's always humbling because nobody's great at everything right off the bat. And I think, especially in our club, it's more of enjoy the time together. Enjoy how you're going to get there. And it's more of training. I always felt weird about that word training because I'm like, that sounds so non-committal. Like,
right.
It's easier to recognize, I'm getting ready for a race,
yeah.
and I'm planning for a race, where training just sounds like this permanent thing that's always going on.
Yeah.
Permanent torture, perpetual torture.
Perpetual torture.
So I think that it is interesting that people come from different backgrounds and then they approach it like real balls to the wall, full testosterone, or they're coming like just dipping their toes in. And you know, a lot of guys will be very testosterone, and then a lot of women that are in triathlon are very timid. They're like scared of the bike. So
yeah,
all shades and colors. And for me, it was all new. I mean, I was not a cyclist or a runner or a swimmer.
Yeah, like 10 years ago now, right?
Yeah. So my friend Marvin that got me into this, his hook was, remember when you're a kid and you like to jump in the pool in the summertime and ride around the block?
You said that in the film. Yeah, it was one of my favorite lines in the film. Yeah. Because you bring it back to the beginning. You bring it back to just why we're doing this. What are we doing? Because play when you're a kid
just playing
is so much more than just playing. But it's like you're thinking about this and you're creating castles and you're dragons and doing this whole thing. And it's like we're all out here. I think Rich Strauss said in the film, we're all just middle-aged people with pointy, funny hats and just it's all just a game. And so, but through this game, we become better people, right? So let's go back to your, you signed up for this race. Linda, who in the film was...
So for the years that we've known each other, she's always dragging me into races, and she's always... So I was having a really good year just running and getting fast, and so I actually dropped the bomb on her and I said, I had to witness her husband, Bill, and I said, Bill, okay, pay attention because I'm gonna poke the bear. And so, Linda, you're going to do an Ironman, and I'm challenging you to do an Ironman.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, no, you're not. No, let's not. Okay, let's do it. And I'm going to bring all of my friends. So I dragged her into it, which was really pretty easy.
Wait, I feel like we need to start with a little context about Linda, though.
Okay.
So tell me... She had done pretty much every race under the moon.
So she's in her mid-60s,
right.
And she's been doing half Ironmans, probably 30 or 40 of those. And so she certainly could finish one, but she's never planned and trained specifically for a full Ironman. And I didn't know what she was waiting for. So, because everybody has their own timeline. And I think she was just dragging her feet, waiting for someone else to push her off the cliff. So she was really just waiting for someone else to poke the bear and make it happen. So you know, that's what friends are for. You know, well, if your friends jump off the cliff, absolutely I'm gonna jump off the cliff.
And so what was it like? Because I think there's a lot of people who will stay at the half iron distance and then be like, you know, I felt strong enough, but I just don't know if I can make a jump. For me, it was like my fitness was there, but the distance, it's crazy coming off a half and being like, oh, I do that twice. And obviously the efforts are different, right? Your pace is different, your strategy is different. But what was it like going from half training to jumping into like full, I'm gonna do this?
Yeah, we gave ourselves over a year to figure it out.
Which is a long time.
Which is a long time, because we were really also looking at which location worked out with what time. And I was trying to time it better so my family could join us, and that didn't work out. So we ended up picking a race that my family couldn't join, but it was better for a lot of other reasons.
Right.
So the time that it ended up being was over a year, which gave us plenty of time to get ready.
Right.
And in reality, you know, your weekend warriors could probably get you to a half Ironman. If you're solid every weekend on a long ride, you'll be good. And so really taking it from a half to a full, it's the few months of concentrated effort. So plugging in the real dates of I'm gonna do long swims and long runs and long bikes, and then start pairing those up together, and then mapping those out on the ramp up to the event. And so in reality, the scheduling and the wisdom of those scheduling events and putting those together, really we relied on coaches. So Linda was getting coached by her friend, and I was just mooching.
Using the free training plans that were coming in?
Well,
oh, what are you doing this week? Oh, okay, cool.
Linda doesn't like to do anything by herself, so I just mooched along. And so everything that she did, I would make every effort that I could to join her.
And how did that work for you? Do you feel like you overtrained? Did you undertrain? Did you?
Oh, so for really long swims and long runs and long bikes, a lot of it was just mentally psyching myself up, because I've never done a marathon before, and I've certainly never swam 2 miles before. So I'd done some centuries before. So the bike, I kind of knew how that was going to feel. But pairing the bike with anything else was mind-boggling.
Yeah.
So when we did swims, we would regularly go out and do open water swims. And then we'd psych ourselves up and go, hey, we're going to do the full, down in Long Beach, there's a Naples Island, and you swim all the way around.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you go down with a bunch of friends, and then you're not swimming by yourself and getting run over by the dragon boat kids all by yourself. So that really gives you confidence that you're gonna make it on race day,
right,
because you've done the distance before. And then on the long runs, everybody has their own pace, especially for this kind of race, what your pace is. And so I think we paired up with a bunch of different kinds of ideas. There's a local running club that throughout the year, they're getting people ready for long runs. And so I think I kind of piggybacked off of them, as they would have long runs through the San Gabriel Valley and at your own pace. So there were times like 16 miles, 18, 20, 22. I never actually got up to the full 26 before Mont Tremblant. I think my longest run was 22.
Yeah, I only got to 18.
And after that point, you're just like, okay, yeah, I think I could hoof it.
There's so much, you have the we'll get to race day. We'll get to race day in a
second.
second.
So the long run, I think it was, again, mentally preparing and psyching myself up that at least I've done the paces to get that mileage. At some point, your feet get comfortable enough, you really get to know shoes that work for you and socks or whatever to make it through those miles. We've done a bunch of half marathons, and so we know it's a good analogy that, you're just breaking it down. So for me, half marathons, I break it down in 3-mile chunks, 3, 6, 9, 12, and then somehow I'll get that last one.
Somehow we'll get there.
So when you stretch it out to marathons,
Yeah.
it's more like 6-mile chunks and 6, 12, 18, and somehow you're gonna make it to 26.
So let's. You couldn't have picked a more beautiful location to do an Ironman. Mont Tremblant, is beautiful. It's gorgeous, which makes it kind of a little bit easier to get those, you know, you're out there forever. Let's get into race day a little bit. So I fly in off of this trip and I come in and I'm like, Joe, this place looks beautiful. Everything looks great. What are you thinking like that race morning going into the race?
It was, so we went out a few days early and we scoped it out with a little preview ride and a preview swim. And the days before the race were just gorgeous.
It was gorgeous.
Just gorgeous, sunny, blue skies.
Couldn't have been better.
Couldn't have been better.
Cool temperatures.
It was awesome.
Perfect, yeah.
So we knew what the profile looked like, and on our preview ride, we did the steeper parts.
Yeah.
It's a 5 mile out and back at the end of each loop.
Right.
And so we knew what that was going to be like. And then the preview swim, oh, it was gorgeous. The lake was nice. So going into race day, I felt comfortable that I knew what it was going to be like in terms of the terrain.
But then what was it actually like?
So actually, so race day, you start so early and you go outside, you're like, it's dark. You don't really notice these huge clouds forming. There's something looming around the corner.
Right.
So, you know, the swim was fine.
Yeah.
The fireworks were great. It was super exciting, the flybys. So really, it started great.
Yeah.
The swim, the first half you're going out, it was smooth if enough. I had guys that were about the same speed. I didn't have that much struggle. At the turnaround was really a turnaround. The next wave had come up on us, so there were people climbing over you. The wind had started picking up, so there was some chop. And then the direction, it was getting darker and it was harder to see kind of where you're going. And the coast of the lake isn't, you know, there's no black stripe on the bottom. So the second half was more turbulent, water-wise and people-wise. Yeah. But it wasn't raining yet, so it was still.
It was one of your best swims. Like
I was surprised.
You had a great swim.
So I felt great on the swim. Definitely my mentality for every race is I make it halfway through the swim, I'm good for the rest of the race because I know I can finish. If I got halfway through, I can make the other half. And if I get through the swim, I'm good for the rest of it. So I felt super excited getting out of there. I remember the wetsuit helpers taking off. I give them a big hug and they're like, what?
There's this shot in the film of you have your wetsuit and then you look at her and then you go, and then you just give a hug and then you're like, yeah, and then you're just on your next thing and she's kind of like, okay, this dude's into it.
He's pretty excited.
So at that point, you're feeling pretty good.
I was feeling this is going to be a great
This is going to be a phenomenal day.
It's going to be a perfect day. So we get to the tent and you have all your bags laid out and you're putting on your stuff, and so you decide what to wear. I didn't make some great choices on what to wear. About mile 10, or to me it was about a half hour into it, it started raining and it started pouring, and then it never stopped on the bike. So it wasn't a freezing cold rain, but it was a lot of rain. So I was spitting out more water than, I felt like I was spitting out more water on the bike than I was spitting out on the swim. It would kick up stuff into my eyeballs, and I usually wear contacts on race day, so I was struggling to see, water everywhere. My tri shoes kind of open top, so they filled up right away, and so every pedal I could hear it going, just like squishing and pouring out water. It's just soaked to the bone. So some of the choices, because it wasn't raining after the swim yet, I made choices that was like, oh, it's not raining yet. And then I'm like, well, you can't, you're gonna live with this choice for a while.
And I think I picked up with you when I was on the motorcycle, like about halfway, almost to the turnaround. And you seemed like you were still in pretty good spirits. I mean, I think you're the type of guy that, correct me if I'm wrong, but if like your emotions You're such a nice dude, you know?
I had a lot of energy still.
Okay.
So the first round of the bike, I felt good, and I still had energy. My emotional well-being just takes a nosedive when I get tired.
Yeah.
So, and we'll get into that just around the corner. So the first loop of the bike is very wet, but I'm just plugging along. And what happens in the rain is, going down on a dry road, you would carry your momentum up and conserve energy. You know, you maximize, kind of optimize your power output, accelerating down to go up. And in the rain, huge puddles, and you know, we're from LA where roads are, we never ride in the rain. On that one day of the rain, we don't ride. So coming down, it's sketchy in terms of, I don't know what's in that puddle or how deep it is or what's in there. So we'd slow down, and then you'd spend a lot more energy climbing up from, like, you know, no momentum. So there was a lot more energy spent on the bike, both the first round and the second round. But when we got to the steep parts of the out and back, just out of town, there were huge accidents. When I was going through, there were 4 or 5 guys just sprawled out, blood and ambulances. I was like, okay, I'm taking it easy.
And does that change your strategy a bit as you see
Well,
that?
we knew, I had already decided I'm not flying through any puddles because I don't know what's in there. Their roads are great, but I've never been on all their roads, so I don't know what a pothole, what the potholes are like. So, so in general, we were being cautious and not flying through puddles. And on the flip side, it takes a lot more energy out of you. So the consequence on the second round, I was pretty tired. And I was stopping kind of just to reboot a little bit at the SAG stations. I'd grab bananas and tinkle a little bit. But I didn't feel totally wiped out. I felt very wet. But the second round, I was like, I'm glad that's over.
So what made, because there was a mental shift that happened, right? Like something went from like, okay, this is a change of plans. To you got angry.
So the bike, you come into the bike and there's people, you hand off your bike and then you go in the tent and it's a second set of bags for changing for the run, and I'm like, where's my shorts? So
where's my shorts?
It's a bad feeling. You spend a whole year
getting soaking wet.
You're soaking wet, so I'm like, well, I gotta run in my so I had chosen in the morning to change out of my tri shorts and put on cycling shorts, and planned on putting on running shorts for the run, but running shorts disappeared out of my bag. They sprouted legs and ran away, and I was a little upset about that. So I ended up running the marathon in my cycling shorts,
which
with a huge soggy bottom. It was awesome.
In normal conditions, I wear a tri kit, it would have been fine, whatever, but you were soaking wet. And it was
soaking wet. The other thing was my socks ran away with my shorts. So I had soggy wet socks that I had on from the bike, or I had no socks. So I had ended up, okay, I'm gonna keep my shorts on because it's not nice to run around nude. So I left my cycling shorts on, I had a dry shirt, and then no socks, and I just went for it. And
so why did that shift your
things started going south?
Because those are everyday things, right? Like things happen, shorts disappear, socks disappear. What made what just put you over the edge on that?
So by mile 2 or 3, my feet were deteriorating. The backs of my shoes were eating into the backs of my Achilles, and so those were bleeding. I started getting blisters. I went to an aid tent, and they were bozos that didn't have stuff that would treat what I needed, and so I gave them some choice words on helping me.
They're beautiful volunteers.
Yeah, they're beautiful volunteers. I'm really sorry to that one lady that wasn't helping me.
Whoever you are.
The second tent, there was a guy that was much more helpful, but my feet were still super wet, and so nothing really sticks to super wet, soggy, like what do they call it? Pruny. Pruny skin doesn't stick.
They were done.
So yeah, my feet were bleeding or they started blistering and
Okay.
they were already bleeding, and I was mad at myself. I had some other saddle sores that were.
But you had to go into this knowing that this moment would come. Like, whether it was rain or hot or cold or whatever it is, you had to, throughout the year of your training, like, you had to have known this moment of, like, you would hit that brick wall, you'd hit that moment, and mentally, did you just not think that that moment was going to be like that? Or did
So I was upset at myself because it was bad planning or prep, that my stuff wasn't in there. I think I had mentally prepared for being tired and mentally prepared for an accident, but I wasn't mentally prepared for, I screwed it up myself. Like, I had sabotaged myself by not putting shorts where I needed shorts or socks where I needed socks. And once I got mad at myself, I kind of blamed myself for the rain. I'm like, well, I couldn't plan for the rain. I kept telling myself, you can't plan for the, oh yeah, I guess I could have planned for the rain. I had a rain jacket and I could have put that on. So there were choices that I made that I decided, okay, when I got mad at myself, I decided, okay, these are all the reasons why I'm mad at myself. And I don't know, I think, like I mentioned earlier, when I'm tired, my mental well-being just goes south too.
Right.
And so if I had been rested and happy, or, you know, just if I had more energy, I could have tried to put that emotional baggage off, and those voices that were yelling at me saying, you screwed yourself up and now you're bleeding and now your butt hurts. And so those were the things that just kept nagging on the way. And I knew I wasn't going to give up and I wasn't going to stop, but I think all the pain that I was feeling and the discomfort was worse than what I had planned on, or that, I don't know how you could plan on pain, but I was blaming myself for more of it, for making it worse.
So you finished though. You crossed that finish line. What did that finish line feel like?
It was mixed emotions. Like, I told myself I always wanted to be really happy, so I was like, be happy as you want to be happy. So, you know, my motto is you always finish with a smile on your face, because those pictures are always there. And you finished, so you should be happy, the kind of shoulda kind of happy. It wasn't as euphoric as everything I had hoped for, but it was, I think it was a deeper satisfaction, like, now it's real, now I really did it. The last few miles, I was looking over my shoulder to see if Linda was gonna catch up to me, because I had started earlier than her. And so her wave was behind me. So I knew not only did she have to catch up to me speed-wise, but she had to make up time to catch me. But I felt like I had been walking so many miles that she was probably just around the corner. So part of my happiness was that she didn't pass me.
Small things.
The other part of the happiness was just seeing my friends at the finish line and cheering for me.
So I think that the sport brings out a lot of emotions, good, bad, positive, struggles that you wouldn't normally go through, things you can't expect. But we spend sometimes years training for an event. You know, it took me 3 years to build up it took you, you know, the 8 years to make that step. And I'm not saying that the full distance is the only, like, whatever effort you put out, there's an expectation there, right? It's like you're building up, you're spending all this time, energy, and effort for this moment, but it's bigger than that, right? Like, so tell me, after the race, you get home, we finished a couple days up there, and you were kind of quiet, but then...
So there was a couple things about finishing. So when you're crossing the line, what are you feeling like? And part of it has really to do with your expectations. So I had told myself, you know, before the race, I said, I'll be happy if I finish. And I didn't have a target time in mind. I didn't have a target person I wanted to beat, even though it would have been nice to beat Linda. But I think it's really your expectations of yourself and that day. Mm-hmm. And so what did I want to get out of that day? I wanted to finish. Mm-hmm. And the interesting story was, why did I feel so bad for so long? Mm-hmm. And so afterwards, what did it feel like afterwards? Well, there was the momentary happiness and taking pictures and enjoying that moment. Mm-hmm. And then the next day, you were sore. Your feet are bleeding and popping blisters. Right. All that stuff kind of resolves in a couple days. Mm-hmm. So the physical body, it snaps back. It was like, that was a really big training day and I hate you, but you'll be okay. Yeah. Recovery drinks and rest and sleep, refueling the body, the body got back on track. Right. But I had some deep sadness, depression, kind of, I couldn't shake it. So, I'd hug my friends, I'd hug my family, and I'm like, I want to be happy again. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know, am I just so sapped of energy, like I was mentioning, that I didn't have enough energy in my body to be happy again. Yeah. I was just like off kilter, that like my body was missing so much energy, it couldn't really deal with emotions. So coming to terms with that is really, whether it's on the surface or below the surface, I think is part of the personal insight that you gain. So for me, the race itself peeled away all of that things that I have learned and things that I had built up to maintain a happy lifestyle. Mm-hmm. So you work really hard at building up the energy and dealing with all of your problems, whether systemically or nutritionally, to deal and keep yourself at a really high level of energy and happiness. Mm-hmm. And then that race just peels that all away. Mm. So that I was just running on empty, and that my emotional state was just like, crap, I'm cussing out people. I'm like, thank God he didn't put that in the film. But I think I was obviously cussing myself out. Right. And I know that's not a great thing to do.
I think we all do it. What makes us get so down on ourselves like that? Because I felt that too after a big race. What is that?
I think it has to do with, well, for me, I know that the energy it takes to have a positive mentality needs to get built up again. Mm. So whether it's part physical, but part mental, to build that energy back up in yourself, to just rebuild and say, I have I have enough energy to stabilize myself. Mm-hmm. My body's, my feet are repairing, my muscles are repairing, but I also used up all my mental energy. Yeah. And just to refill that, either spiritually or mentally, it takes more time, or you need better skills at that.
And I think it's so easy in our Instagram culture to just not admit those things, but I appreciate you saying hey, this was really hard. And I remember right after the race, I think you didn't text me back a couple times, and we were a little distant, and it was it's so easy to ignore that and just post positive things. But I think you actually shared it in one of your blogs that hey, this brought up some old feelings of anger and depression when I was a kid.
There's a couple of things I've learned about myself is that I'm really fortunate to have a short-term memory. That I don't remember old stuff very well. And so stuff rolls off of me, and I just try to remember, I actively try to remember the good stuff. Yeah. And I'm okay with letting all the stuff I don't remember, which includes all the bad stuff, just float down the river. So people ask me about Ironman, I go, I know it was really tough and I had some bad times, but I went away with some great things, great experience with my friends, and a great experience and accomplishments. I think one of the things I learned that helps is that it's kind of like an analogy of a cup, you know, that you fill up the cup with your positive emotions and you manage it. You keep filling it in. If you use it up and you fill it back up. And so like a half Ironman, I would go like 3/4 of the way down, and I wouldn't go to total rage empty. And then I'd fill back up pretty fast, you know. But this one, it went all the way empty dry. It just shattered the glass. Yeah. And it took a lot more time and energy to put the cup back together and fill it and remind myself, hey, there's no reason to be having this black cloud or being angry. Certainly don't take it out on these innocent bystanders known as your family and friends. That's not fair to anybody.
Or the volunteer at the aid station.
Yes.
Or, we still love you. Volunteer.
Oh, well, okay, so there was one aid station probably at mile 22, and Alvin, I don't know which pass this was, but he saw me and was yelling at me, and he saw me run into a porta potty and came out, and I was just slamming the door and just yelling at it. And he's like, guess that one's out of TP.
So if you were to summarize this whole experience in as short as you could, what would you say? Like, just a sentence or two. What would you say about this experience?
Ironman is life-changing, and you learn about yourself. You learn about the accomplishments you can make. You learn about your limits, good and bad. And you also learn about life. Like, if you don't deal with the rest of your life, it might fall apart on you if you're not working on it. And you really see the benefits of having friends and community in it. It was such an integral part of my experience, was that there were 8 or 9 first-time Ironman with us. There were 17 racers with us. And so that was a big part of that experience.
The community.
Yeah.
So it took me a year to finally get the film out. Through, you know, there's this, so it took me a little bit. The film came out, and it was like really well received in this weird way, because it's not like I have a big platform, I'm like a huge influencer or something like that. And I put it out on my channels, and we had a small screening, which we had our friends and family show up, and it was super fun. As like, you know, for me as a filmmaker, and also for you to relive that experience. But then we put it, you know, we put it onto Facebook and out into the world. And Facebook, it started getting like all this traction through this triathlon community, and it got shared on these triathlon pages, and all of a sudden, like, it became a thing, like 10,000 views. And then YouTube, it started, and I just put it up on YouTube, and it just started growing, and people were commenting like, Joe, thank you for sharing. I want to hear more of your story. And now it's at like 86,000 views, which, you know, it's kind of cool for that to happen. What do you think about all these people resonating with this small, I know they didn't get all of it. They didn't hear that like anger part, or they didn't hear like some of the post-race depression that we all deal with. But tell me about why you think that the community resonated with your story a little bit.
It's a beautiful film, and I just want to, you know, thank you very much, Zach. It's really well made, and it tells a great story. So again, I think that my story was a story of that any man can do this. It's not crazy.
Right.
And it was really an honest, I'm not faking it, and I put in the time to do this. So I know mentally that I'm prepared to do this, and physically I've gotten myself ready to do this. I think people, like when I was new to triathlon, I'd go onto YouTube and look for stuff. What this pops up at is where it meets people where they're at. It meets people that are interested in seeing a story of how to get to and get through your first Ironman.
Whatever that next
step is. Because they don't really know what it's like. If you look at Ironman.com and they have these race coverage of pros, you're like, that's amazing, but that's not me. I would be over there drowning.
Right. We're not allowed to say that word.
Yeah, we edited that out. What I think the good part about the film really connects with people because they can see themselves in this way.
Mm-hmm.
If I put in the time, if I put in the effort, if I'm just there for the journey,
mm-hmm.
it can happen, and it could be an amazing journey and an amazing accomplishment of what you want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you signed up for another race.
Yeah, so,
it wasn't one and done like somebody here.
It wasn't one and done.
And you signed up for another one. Tell us.
Yeah,
why?
so for me, triathlon, I really felt when I found the sport that it's a lifestyle thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a healthy way to live, and it's more than just, it wasn't something on a list that I wanted to check off, and now I'm done with triathlon. I'm going to turn that page, and now I'm going to go climb
Which
Everest.
might be okay. That's fine. Yeah.
That's something people can do.
Right.
But for me, I had really joined the triathlon community because I wanted to stay in that healthy space. Mm-hmm. So I knew I would do a second full sooner or later.
Mm-hmm.
I think it happened. For me, it was rebalancing. So after the first race, it was rebalancing your life because we really put a lot of stuff on hold. My wife is a super trooper, and my kids like, oh, who are you again? So spending some concerted effort to earn those spousal approval units. Fill up the cup at home.
Again.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is important, right? Like you hear about burnt out athletes all the time.
Ironman widows,
which is like you spend all this time living healthy, but you stop focusing on one of the main engines that you have is your community and your family and your wife and all that kind of stuff. So following the race, there was a rebalance period and doing half Ironmans and other just regular stuff, training mode. So what race is it? So what are you gonna do?
So we signed up for Ironman Louisville.
Nice.
It's in the fall. And so I was running out of, Linda's like, yeah, you need to do a second race. You need to do Ironman again. And I'm like, it's okay. Sometime in the future, I promise I'll do it. And she's like, no, you need to do it now. And I'm like running out of excuses. So my daughter's finishing up high school, and she'll be going off to college. So I'm like, I can't commit to any races in the summer because we got to drive her to whatever school she's going to go to. And so Linda's like, well, that's great. I have the perfect race. It's in the fall. It's after every school will have started. I'm completely out of excuses. And then I'm like, no, I think this is a good time to do it. I think this is a good time to do it in the sense that after we've done our first race, we know what it's going to be like. And then the ramp up will be intense. But it won't be as life-consuming or as, I think, as disconcerting. We were really preparing our minds for the full Ironman, where this time we know what that's like. We know what it's gonna look and feel like.
And I think there's a lesson there, right? Like just setting a plan and executing that plan. That's all it's about. That's the journey. It's like, it's not necessarily all about the rainy day finish line. It's about setting a plan and executing it, and the joy that comes from that. I know for me, the joy that comes through execution is everything. So
I think the other thing about the second time around is that it's setting goals for yourself.
Yeah.
So after the first race, you kind of flounder. You're like, well, what do I do every morning if I'm not killing myself? It's like I could have
becomes part of you.
More than one rest day. This is crazy.
You start to miss the pool.
Yeah.
I felt that. I started swimming and I was like, this is the worst thing ever. And then I stopped and I'm like, I missed the pool. Well, anything you want to say to the 80,000 people that watched your YouTube video?
One, it's really weird to have a little film on YouTube that there's a lot of people have seen. And I get direct messages almost every day thanking me for sharing the story and inspiring them to do their own thing. And so to all the YouTube fans out there, I'd say, the film was intended to share some inspiration, to say you can do it, it's possible, and enjoy the journey along the way. So if this, if you've seen the movie, I think you need to sign up for a race.
You just gotta do it.
You need to do it.
Execute.
You just need to do it, and take your friends with you. Yeah.